Pardon the interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre. Tony, it is the highlight of my whole week to work with you.
Tony Kornheiser, that is so nice. It's part of my week, too.
Okay.
Yes.
I see what you're trying to do. You don't want to give me the superlatives that your heart is trying to. Your voice just isn't cooperating. I know what's happening inside of you.
I'm just reading what they put out there for me. You know that in private I would tell you I love working with you, but publicly, I'm not going there. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon is busy passing out name, image, and likeness benefits to Northwestern players. That's so good. So I'm joined by our great friend, the host of the ESPN Daily Podcast, my grandson, Pablo Torre. Better cheer than yesterday. Oh, listen to this. They love you. And we begin today with the Carolina Panthers comfortably beating Houston last night 24-9 to get to 3-0, but losing their best player and their first-round draft pick to injury. Christian McCaffrey pulled up with a bad hamstring and will miss a few weeks, and J.C. Horn broke his foot. Sam Darnold threw for 304 yards, and he ran for 2 touchdowns. Pablo, is the biggest story Darnold, the Panthers' defense, or the injuries?
It has to be the injuries, Tony. I'll golf clap here for Sam Darnold and the defense, but the injuries, that's the only thing you listed that impacts all of the things you listed. Because Sam Darnold has been playing great, relatively speaking. I understand that. But the fact is, when Christian McCaffrey, they said after the game, we're not the Carolina Christian McCaffreys. Well, you should aspire to be. That's the best version of this team. You give him the ball. Sam Darnold is lesser without him. And then Horn, their top 10 draft pick, Tony, they put him on the number 1 receiver. And so as good as this defense has been, as well as they've sacked the quarterback, they cannot possibly blitz as well when that guy's missing. So it has to be the injuries.
I am not disagreeing that the injuries are very important, particularly to McCaffrey, who at the moment he went out was leading the league in yards from scrimmage. He missed 13 games last year with 3 different injuries. Now with this thing, we are welcoming him to Tua land. We are. I mean, he's now becoming brittle. And I won't discount how important that is. I'll go to the defense for a second and say that they are, very surprisingly, leading the NFL. They've given up only 30 points in 3 games. The Atlanta Falcons give up 30 points by the third quarter of their games. So this is a really remarkable statistic for Carolina. But, and Pablo, there's always a but 2 of the quarterbacks they've faced have been rookie quarterbacks. New Orleans sort of imploded, so I don't know that I'm ready to commit to that. Where I will disagree with you is I think by far the most important thing is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was dreadful with the Jets, and I cannot emphasize dreadful enough. They put him at the side of the road with a sign that said, "Free furniture, please take," right? And Carolina took him. In 3 games, he has passed for 888 yards. He has a rating of 99. With the Jets, he had a rating of 9. And this is the reason I'm saying this. You cannot win in the NFL without a good quarterback. Maybe Sam Darnold is actually a good quarterback. And if he is, they have 10 years of gold there because he's a young guy.
Tony, your description of that scene, Sam Darnold on the side of the road, reminds me of that Hemingway aphorism, right? What's the saddest poem in the world? Baby shoes never worn. Maybe this is sadder. Sam Darnold already worn. Like, we gave up on him, and you're right. But here's the thing about Sam Darnold and what he's getting from his team. He has played so far this season 0.0 snaps from behind. He's been leading the entire season. Part of that is due to the defense he's played against. A lot of it is due also to the defense that he has that I think is worse, again, because Horn is out for who knows how long, breaking his foot on a non-contact injury. But Tony, we move on because the NFL announced today that it will extend its wildcard playoff weekend into Monday night. With the expanded playoffs, that means 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and now 1 on Monday. So no announcement was made as to who will air the game. We can have our guesses, but what do you see as the costs and the benefits of this move?
Well, first of all, Peyton Manning and his family will air the game. From wherever they want to do it. It'll be the Manning family.
Yeah, from their attic,
okay.
Yes.
So what is the immediate benefit? The immediate benefit is another football game. It's a playoff football game that will be watched by 30 million people. So if I ran the NBA in January, I would not count a program with an NBA game on this particular Monday night. The immediate cost is this team cannot possibly have a full week. They have to have a short week. The winner of this game will not be asked to play on Saturday, but they will be asked to play on Sunday. And the likelihood is, because it's a wild card game, they will probably go on the road. So that combination of a short week and going on the road is not great. But I'm not approaching this or identifying with player problems. I'm identifying with viewers. This is good.
No, Tony, for viewers, the costs are that disease that you get when you sit on a couch too long and your skin begins to fuse with fabric. Those are the costs, because what we're getting here with 3 days of playoff football is the NFL saying, all right, I guess we have our risk board. Let's just take over Oceania now. Let's just take whatever territory we want. The NFL, as you know, Tony, could put a football on a table on a Tuesday and draw 2 million viewers. They have slow played this because last year, the College Football National Championship was on the Monday night in question. Now they're like, okay, roll up the sleeves. No, let's make another bazillion dollars.
Yeah. And I don't blame them for this, because this is actually what the public wants. Let's go back 1 year. There was one team last year that was a wild card team, played on Sunday, then had to play on Saturday and had to play on the road. That was the Baltimore Ravens. It obviously affected them negatively because they only scored 3 points. I think it was against Buffalo. They only scored 3 points. But wild card teams generally lose. 4 wild card teams lost the next week last year, and the reason 2-1 is because they played each other. The thing that everybody remembers, Pablo, is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was a wild card team and they won the whole thing, but wild card teams generally lose no matter what happens.
And Tony, I'm okay. Look, the short week in general, obviously a disadvantage, no way around that. But I'm okay if they're going to put like the lowest seeded wildcard teams in that game. That's something to play for so that you avoid it. I'm okay with incentive setting up, and I'm okay, yes, with my body fusing to the couch on that particular weekend.
And by the way, on Monday, the teams that do play on Monday have a long week. They can prepare an extra day. Here we go. ESPN, which signs our checks, full disclosure, has come out with its rankings of the top 100 players in the NBA. To end the suspense, Norman Powell is number 100. Shout out, Normie. ESPN's top 5 in order: Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Steph Curry. Pablo, are you on board with 1 through 5?
I'm generally on board, Tony. I see this as 2 tiers, really. The top 3 guys you mentioned, and Kevin Durant and Giannis and LeBron James per the ESPN rank order. Any order for those 3 guys, I'm okay with, generally speaking. The most skilled guy, the most currently decorated guy, MVP awards in 3 straight years, 2 regular season ones, then a finals one, and then it's LeBron James. So I get it. Any order, I'm okay with. If I'm Nikola Jokic, though, and Joel Embiid, I'm a little offended. With that we finished 1-2 in the MVP race and Luka Doncic and Steph Curry are suddenly 4 and 5. That's where my ire might be raised if I'm one of those 2 guys.
Well, I'll just address that briefly. Steph Curry's got a bunch of rings. I don't think those other guys have any rings. So if I'm Steph Curry, I'm not ceding my spot to somebody else. Let me just do this, and please do not be offended by this, but this is one of those days when it would be so great if Wilbon were here, and here's why. Because I'm going to go 6 through 10. 6 through 10, Jokic, Embiid, Damian Lillard, Anthony Davis, James Harden. No Suns, no Devin Booker, no Chris Paul. Wilbon's head would explode that no Suns were there. And now I'm going to go 11 through 15. Bradley Beal, Paul George, Chris Paul, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker. So thank God there are Suns. The universe is at rest now. But Paul George at number 12, a guy who's never won anything, who's never made a single clutch shot. And I will go further. People not in the top 15, Trae Young, Zion Williamson. A lot of people go see them. They are hot. And the most amazing thing to me is Russell Westbrook is number 29. Now, I'm going to tell you this. If you lined up the top 30 players and then you had 2 captains pick, there is no way Russell Westbrook would last until number 29. That is impossible to comprehend that he could be 29. So.
Yeah, Tony, I can throw in some more insult. I can lather myself up. I can sort of maybe wear a bald cap and make you feel better about today's show. I am not Will Bond. What I will instead say about Russell Westbrook, though, is that he is a fascinating dude because he is a one-man culture war. There is no greater gap that you have diagnosed here between estimations from players and estimations from people who watch players play basketball. Because all of the things that I see a guy who is older, I see a guy who is stubborn, I see a guy who has not gotten along with his teammates, a guy who has changed teams like a journeyman at this point. But when players see Russell Westbrook, they see a guy who will lead them into war. I mean, it's a remarkable cultural battle that I am on the wrong side of. If you ask any NBA player, you are right about that.
Yeah, I would also say this one thing. Most of these rankings, whoever does them, whatever network, whatever magazine, whatever newspaper, you can do anything you want. They're for fun. As long as you have Kevin Durant, as long as you acknowledge he's the best basketball player in the world, which I think the Olympics proved, as long as you do that, I don't care where you rank them. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Coming up, the Phillies are suddenly closing in on the Braves. Will they catch them?
And what's the word for the kickoff return that Marshall pulled off, Tony, against Appalachian State last night?
So the Knicks, who finished fourth, I believe, in the East, their leading guy, Julius Randle, is number 42.
Oh, millennials,
Boy,
Tony. These millennials. Millennials, you can't trust them. Millennials. Am I doing my Wilbon impression well enough yet?
That sort of sounds like Tom Thibodeau made up the rankings, because it makes him look awfully good, doesn't it? Time for Pablo to dazzle us all with his lexicon and what's the word, as if I'm some sort of state school grad. What's first?
The Phillies have a blank chance of catching the Braves.
They have a next week chance. At the moment, the Phillies are 2 behind the Braves. Starting next Tuesday, they have 3 games against the Braves in Atlanta. You win those games, you are likely to win the NL East and likely to go to the playoffs. I mean, what you do is you ride Bryce Harper, who is at the moment an MVP candidate. Pablo, I don't know if you know this, but since August 1st, he's batting .341. He's got the number 1 OPS in all of baseball. At the moment, the Braves are stumbling. Let me get the numbers correct. They're 12-15 since August 22nd. The Phillies are winning games out of their hat, let me say. They were down 6-0 last night and won. They were down 7-0 last week and won. They have won 7 out of 9. And the rest of the teams they play are last place teams. They play the Pirates and they play the Marlins. So if they win this series, in Atlanta, they're going to the playoffs.
So the Phillies are going to win games out of their hat. The Braves, Tony, they might lose a game from a different dimension. And that's why my word here is interdimensional. Because what is happening tonight when the Braves play the Padres in this weird doubleheader that's not really a doubleheader they're going to play in San Diego is that they're starting with the resumption of a weather-delayed game from July. They're already in the 5th inning. Many players have been used that cannot be used tonight. Players have been injured since then. But the point is, the Braves enter tonight trailing 1 run in a 7-inning game that's about to help decide a pennant race. This is breaking all sorts of time travel rules. I just love the idea that this entire thing may come down to a fake game in a fake stadium because they're also the home team tonight in San Diego, the Atlanta Braves are.
Next.
Marshall's kickoff return for a touchdown was blank.
It was Copperfieldian, and by that I mean David Copperfield, the magician. Like
Dickens,
the cameraman, I followed what was their play in this game that was probably more important, and that was when App State didn't go in to score, and their guy went down on the 5-yard line, and the other team Marshall had no more timeouts. And you go down on the 5, you get a fresh set of downs, you run out the clock. You go into the end zone, you have to kick off to Marshall. We don't want to see that again if we're App State because of what happened earlier. And with a little homage to Scotty on this one, that was a very bad beat because App State ends up winning by 1. They were favored by 7.5. If they go in and kick the point, their fans win, but it was a very smart play.
So I want to get back to the broadcast element here, Tony, because you used Copperfieldian. I'm going to use Orson Wellesian, the field who's trying to see around limbs in real speed. You fooled the nation. You fooled technology. That is the real magic trick in all of this.
That's it. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Could the Colts... Happy time, people. Happy 51st birthday, Mario Cristobal. Cristobal is in his 4th full year as coach of Oregon, which finds itself ranked number 3 in the country, largely on the momentum of their upset victory over Ohio State in Columbus. Oregon got used to being up this high under Chip Kelly. What makes this particularly interesting is the situation at Miami, where 3rd-year coach Manny Diaz finds himself on the hot seat. Eugene, Oregon is about as far away from Miami as it gets in the continental United States. But Miami is where Cristobal was born and raised, Christopher Columbus High School. Not only that, Cristobal went to the U and played offensive tackle for two national champions under Dennis Erickson. Later, Cristobal was an assistant coach at Miami. So if that job opens, Cristobal will surely hear his phone ring.
Tony, Oregon may be the primary case study in how geography is destiny, especially with recruiting in college football, because it's not just the Miami job, it's the USC job that Cristobal is rumored for. And it's all because despite the Nike fortune Oregon has, all that nice stadium uniform stuff, they're in Eugene, and players just don't really want to play in Eugene as much as they want to play in those other places.
Happy anniversary, Terrell Owens. On this day 21 years ago, the always entertaining and always self-absorbed wide receiver, then playing for the 49ers, made his way to that glorious star in the middle of the Cowboys' home field not once, but twice, to celebrate touchdowns with those "hey, look at me" poses. T.O. was not quite finished with his second pose when he was drilled by an angry Cowboy, George Teague, who was ejected. T.O. was later fined and suspended by his own coach, Steve Mariucci, and they reportedly never spoke again. T.O. went on to be T.O. in Philadelphia and, amusingly, in Dallas. But the point should not be lost. This is taunting, kids. Standing on the other team's logo and posing is taunting. And what Teague did is retaliation, kids. This is exactly what the NFL wants to avoid, and this is why taunting is a point of emphasis.
So as someone who resembles the kid descriptor there, I'll just point out that I don't think a whole legislation about taunting is necessary. You know what they could do, Tony? They could just put up velvet ropes around Lucky the Leprechaun and the Dallas Star in case they're so worried about guys stomping on it.
Ooh, you think it's okay to stomp on the Star? Really? They won't like you in Dallas. Happy trails to front row seats for Pablo at a New York Liberty playoff game. You remember yesterday when Pablo shamelessly begged for front row seats at a New York Liberty playoff game? A dicey look for a Harvard grad. Well, Pablo will have to wait for next year. The Liberty were eliminated last night by Phoenix. So the Liberty go home with a 12-21 record. And you might ask how a 12-20 team got into the playoffs. The answer is they had a head-to-head tiebreaker with two other 12-20 teams, my Mystics and the Sparks. Phoenix got a free throw from Breonna Turner last night with less than 1 second to go to beat New York 83-82 when Sabrina Ionescu's desperation heave fell way short. Pablo, I'm sure if you beg loud enough, you could get a ticket to Phoenix or Chicago. They're still in. You can stay at Wilbon's houses.
I don't want to say that the New York Liberty have a curse that is the result of them not listening to my pleas to put me courtside last night, but do you think I get a wing of the new dream house Wilbon is building in Arizona, Tony? Do I get a wing, not just the house and not just the room? I'd like, one entire section of his Bruce Wayne mansion.
There are so many houses that Wilbon owns, all in cities that have major league teams. You can go there, see a game, and crash at Wilbon's huge house. All right, let's go to the big finish. Colts quarterback Carson Wentz practiced today despite 2 sprained ankles. Are you impressed?
I'm not impressed. I'm afraid for Carson Wentz and anybody who invests emotionally in Carson Wentz. Baseball America, meanwhile, reports that several AAA teams, Tony, will experiment with a pre-tacked ball in the last week of the season. Is that okay by you?
So apparently they do this in Japan. This is they take the substance, the goop, and baseball itself puts it on the baseball so that pitchers don't have to do it. Everyone seems to be happy with this. If it's a good idea, run it into the majors. Odell Beckham Jr. is expected to see his first action of the season.